Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and fellow dreamer, success is a dream we all chase, but along this journey there are unseen battles we face every single day. We fight not only against the challenges in our environment, but often against the greatest enemies within us. Let's talk about these enemies and how they hinder our progress. The first enemy of success is self-doubt. This is a silent killer. It creeps into our hearts and minds, telling us we are not good enough, that we are not capable. When we listen to this voice, we stop trying, we hold back, and we choose comfort over growth. But remember, this self-doubt is a lie. You are more than capable. Believe in your abilities, even when the world doesn't. The moment you start believing in yourself is the moment you start defeating self-doubt. The second enemy is fear of failure. Fear holds us back from stepping outside our comfort zones. It whispers that if we fail, we are not worthy, that failure will define us. But in reality, failure is not the end, it's a lesson, a stepping stone toward greatness. Failure doesn't defeat you unless you let it. Each time you rise, stronger and more resilient, you rewrite the narrative. The third enemy is procrastination. How many times have we delayed our dreams because we convinced ourselves that there's always tomorrow? Time waits for no one. The most successful people are not the ones with the most time, but the ones who use it wisely. If you want to succeed, stop waiting for the perfect moment. Start now, because today is all you have. The fourth enemy is comfort. We often choose to stay in places where we feel safe, where we know what to expect. But growth never happens in comfort zones. You can't expect to become the best version of yourself while playing it safe. Success demands discomfort. It demands pushing through barriers, facing challenges that seem impossible, and embracing the unknown. The last enemy is negative influences. Sometimes the people around us can be our greatest challenge. They can sow seeds of doubt, tell us our dreams are too big, or convince us to settle for less. But remember, your success is yours. Don't let anyone tell you what you can or cannot achieve. Surround yourself with people who uplift, inspire, and challenge you to grow. Success is not defined by a destination, it's defined by the courage to keep going, the strength to push through these enemies, and the resilience to rise every time we fall. Be brave. Believe in yourself. Let go of fear, procrastination, and negativity. Step out of your comfort zone and choose to fight for your dreams. Because success is not just a word, it's the result of every choice you make, every obstacle you overcome, and every step you take toward becoming the person you were always meant to be. Keep going. Success is waiting for you. Self-doubt is one of the most subtle yet powerful enemies of success. It often operates quietly beneath the surface, wearing the mask of caution, insecurity, or humility. But its effects are far-reaching and profound, and if left unchecked, it can hold us back from achieving our potential. It tells us that we are not good enough, not capable enough, not deserving of success. And in doing so, it paralyzes us. Self-doubt takes root in our minds like a weed that spreads without us even noticing, and it influences the decisions we make, the risks we take, and the goals we pursue. When we experience self-doubt, it's easy to think that it's an inherent part of who we are. We may even believe that it's a natural response to the challenges we face. But self-doubt is not a natural state, it is a learned behavior. Over time, we absorb negative messages from the world around us, from our families, from society, from our experiences, and we internalize them. These messages tell us that we are not good enough, that we are not worthy of success. As a result, we begin to believe that our dreams are too big, that our goals are too far-fetched, and that we are not capable of achieving them. But here's the truth: self-doubt is a lie. It is a distortion of reality that we allow to control our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. When we look at successful people, we often see them as having an unshakable confidence. We may assume that they never experience self-doubt or that they have it under control. But the reality is that everyone experiences self-doubt at some point. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is how they respond to it. Self-doubt is a natural part of the human experience. It's a feeling that arises when we face uncertainty, when we push ourselves outside of our comfort zones, and when we take risks. But successful people don't allow self-doubt to define them. Instead, they use it as a signal to take action, to push through the discomfort, and to prove to themselves that they are capable. Self-doubt can either hold us back or motivate us forward, depending on how we choose to react to it. One of the key steps in overcoming self-doubt is recognizing that it is not a reflection of our true abilities. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that our doubts are telling us something about who we are, that they are an accurate assessment of our worth. But self-doubt is not a reliable guide to our potential. It's a temporary feeling that doesn't reflect our true capabilities. The key is to separate our self-worth from our doubts and to recognize that they do not define us. When we start to acknowledge that self-doubt is simply a temporary emotional response, it becomes easier to move past it. Instead of letting it control us, we can choose to take action despite the doubt. We can remind ourselves of our strengths, our accomplishments, and the times when we have overcome challenges in the past. These reminders can help us counter the negative thoughts that self-doubt brings and keep us focused on what is possible. Another important step in overcoming self-doubt is to shift our perspective on failure. Failure is often one of the root causes of self-doubt. We fear failure because we associate it with inadequacy, with not being good enough. We think that if we fail, it means we are not worthy of success or that we will never achieve our goals. But failure is not the enemy of success, it is a necessary part of the journey. Every successful person has faced failure along the way. What sets them apart is not that they never failed, but that they didn't allow failure to stop them. They learned from their mistakes, they grew stronger, and they kept going. When we shift our mindset to see failure as a learning opportunity rather than a reflection of our worth, we become more resilient in the face of self-doubt. We realize that mistakes are not a sign that we are not good enough, but rather a sign that we are pushing ourselves to grow. The more we embrace failure as part of the process, the less power self-doubt holds over us. Another powerful tool in overcoming self-doubt is to surround ourselves with people who believe in us, even when we struggle to believe in ourselves. Sometimes when we are in the depths of self-doubt, it can be hard to see our own potential. We may feel isolated or disconnected from our own abilities, but when we have a strong support system, we can lean on others to remind us of our worth. Surrounding ourselves with people who encourage, uplift, and inspire us can help us to quiet the voice of self-doubt and replace it with a voice of support and encouragement. It's also important to recognize that self-doubt often stems from comparison. In today's world of social media, we are constantly exposed to the curated, polished lives of others. It's easy to look at someone else's success and feel like we are falling short. But comparison is one of the most destructive things we can do to ourselves. It distracts us from our own path and makes us believe that we are not enough. The truth is that everyone's journey is unique, and comparing ourselves to others only holds us back. We must learn to focus on our own growth, our own progress, and our own goals without worrying about where others are in their journeys. To combat self-doubt, it's important to cultivate self-compassion. Instead of being harsh or critical with ourselves when we experience doubt, we can learn to be gentle. We can remind ourselves that it's okay to feel uncertain, that it's okay to have moments of insecurity. Self-compassion allows us to acknowledge our doubts without letting them take control. When we treat ourselves with kindness, we are more likely to move through the doubt with confidence and grace. Taking action is another powerful way to combat self-doubt. When we sit in doubt without taking any action, it tends to grow stronger. The longer we wait, the more we feed into the cycle of uncertainty. But when we take action, even if it's a small step, we break that cycle. Action builds momentum, and the more we move forward, the less power self-doubt has over us. Taking action, even when we feel uncertain, proves to ourselves that we are capable and that we can trust ourselves to handle whatever comes our way. It's also important to remember that self-doubt doesn't go away overnight. Overcoming it is a process, and it requires practice, patience, and perseverance. We will likely face moments of doubt throughout our lives, but the more we confront them, the easier it becomes to manage them. Each time we face our self-doubt and push through it, we grow stronger and more resilient. We learn to trust ourselves more, and we build a foundation of self-belief that becomes unshakable. Self-doubt is a natural part of the human experience, but it doesn't have to define us. When we recognize that it's not a reflection of our true abilities, when we shift our perspective on failure, when we surround ourselves with support, and when we take action despite our doubts, we can overcome it. We all have the power to defeat self-doubt and to step into the greatness that lies within us. It starts with believing in ourselves, even when the world or our own minds tell us otherwise. Because the truth is that we are more than capable. We are worthy of success. And when we choose to believe that, we begin the journey of turning our dreams into reality. Fear of failure is one of the most common obstacles that holds people back from achieving success. It's a natural human instinct to avoid discomfort, and failing often feels like a painful experience. It can feel like a personal attack on our worth or abilities. But the reality is, failure is not the enemy we make it out to be. It's often the key that unlocks the doors to success. The fear of failure holds us back not because failure is inherently harmful, but because we have built it up in our minds to be something much bigger and more dangerous than it truly is. When we let the fear of failure control us, we create a barrier between ourselves and our dreams. We stop taking risks, we stop pushing boundaries, and we settle for mediocrity instead of striving for greatness. We may convince ourselves that staying comfortable is safer than stepping into the unknown, but in doing so, we deprive ourselves of the opportunities for growth and success that come from facing our fears. The fear of failure becomes a self-imposed limit that prevents us from reaching our full potential. One of the most powerful things we can do to overcome the fear of failure is to change the way we view failure itself. We often see failure as a definitive end, something to be ashamed of, a reflection of our inadequacy. However, failure is not a sign of weakness or incapability. It is simply part of the process. Every successful person has encountered failure at some point. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is how they respond to it. Successful people don't let failure define them or stop them from pursuing their goals. Instead, they learn from it, adjust their approach, and keep going. Rather than seeing failure as something negative, we can begin to view it as a lesson. Each time we fail, we gain valuable insights into what works and what doesn't. We learn what to avoid in the future, and we develop the resilience necessary to keep moving forward. Every failure is an opportunity to grow stronger, to refine our skills, and to improve our strategies. The more we embrace failure as a stepping stone rather than a setback, the less power it holds over us. Changing our perspective on failure also involves accepting that perfection is not the goal. Many times we fear failure because we hold ourselves to impossibly high standards. We convince ourselves that we have to do everything perfectly or not at all. This all or nothing thinking paralyzes us and makes us afraid to even begin. But perfection is an illusion. No one is perfect, and no one achieves success without encountering bumps along the way. The key to success is not to avoid failure, but to keep going despite it. Embracing the fact that failure is part of the journey frees us from the pressure of perfection and allows us to take action without the constant fear of making mistakes. Another reason we fear failure is because we often tie our self-worth to our success. When we fail, it feels like a reflection of who we are as a person. We start to believe that if we fail, it means we are not good enough or capable enough. But our worth is not determined by our success or failure. Our value as individuals is inherent, and failure does not diminish who we are. Instead of allowing failure to make us question our worth, we can use it as an opportunity to practice self-compassion. We can acknowledge that we are human, and humans make mistakes. Failing does not make us less worthy or less capable. In fact, it makes us more experienced and more resilient. Overcoming the fear of failure also requires taking small, manageable risks. Often, the fear of failure is so overwhelming because we imagine the worst possible outcome. We create a mental image of failure that is so extreme that it paralyzes us. But the truth is that failure is rarely as catastrophic as we fear. Taking small risks one step at a time allows us to build confidence and reduce the fear of failure. With each small failure we experience, we realize that the consequences are not as dire as we imagined. This gives us the courage to take bigger risks and to continue moving forward toward our goals. Another key to overcoming the fear of failure is to focus on the process, not just the outcome. Often we fear failure because we are overly focused on the result. We set high expectations for ourselves and are afraid that we will fall short. But the process of working toward our goals is just as important as the end result. By focusing on the journey rather than obsessing over the destination, we can enjoy the experience of growth and learning. even when things don't go according to plan. Every step we take, even if it results in a setback or failure, is an important part of the process that gets us closer to our goals. The fear of failure is a normal part of being human. It is a natural response to uncertainty and the unknown. However, when we let this fear control us, it prevents us from reaching our full potential. The key to overcoming the fear of failure is to shift our perspective, embrace failure as a learning opportunity, and understand that it is not a reflection of our worth. By taking small risks, focusing on the process, and practicing self-compassion, we can move past our fear of failure and use it as a tool for growth and success. The reality is that failure is not the end. It is simply a stepping stone on the path to achieving our dreams. And every time we face our fear and keep going, we move one step closer to realizing our potential. Procrastination is one of the most insidious enemies of success. It doesn't appear as a loud and obvious force. Instead, it creeps into our lives slowly, masking itself as a harmless delay or a moment of relaxation. However, procrastination has the power to derail even the most ambitious of plans. It convinces us that we'll have more time later, that the task isn't urgent, or that we'll feel more motivated at some undefined point in the future. But in reality, procrastination steals time, energy, and focus, leaving us frustrated, overwhelmed, and further away from our goals. At its core, procrastination is often driven by fear. The fear of not being able to do something perfectly, the fear of failing, or even the fear of success itself. It creates a cycle where we avoid taking action because we don't feel ready or capable, and this avoidance then creates more anxiety, guilt, and self-doubt. The longer we put something off, the more pressure builds, and eventually we find ourselves in a state of paralysis. Procrastination is not a result of laziness, but rather a response to internal conflict. We often think that we procrastinate because we're not motivated or disciplined enough, but the truth is we procrastinate because we are overwhelmed by the perceived difficulty of the task or by the emotions we associate with it. The thought of completing a project, writing a report, or starting a new endeavor can seem daunting, and so we avoid it, distracting ourselves with easier, more immediate rewards. The problem with this is that the relief we get from avoiding the task is temporary, while the consequences of procrastination, stress, missed opportunities, and unfinished goals last far longer. One of the most effective ways to combat procrastination is by breaking tasks down into smaller, more manageable parts. Large projects can feel intimidating, and procrastination thrives when we look at the entire task as one overwhelming whole. However, when we break down that task into smaller, actionable steps, it becomes much easier to start. Each small step we take builds momentum, and before we know it, we're making significant progress. The key is to focus on starting, not finishing. Once we begin, even in a small way, the feeling of accomplishment propels us forward and makes it easier to keep going. Another powerful strategy for overcoming procrastination is to change our relationship with perfectionism. Many people procrastinate because they feel that the work they produce has to be flawless. They fear that if they do something imperfectly, it will be a reflection of their abilities or worth. This fear of imperfection creates a mental block, and instead of taking action, they freeze. The truth is that perfection doesn't exist. No project, no task, no piece of work is ever going to be perfect. The goal should not be perfection, but progress. Accepting that mistakes are a natural part of the process and that we can always improve and refine our work later helps remove the pressure that fuels procrastination. Another key factor in overcoming procrastination is creating a sense of urgency. When we put things off, it's often because we don't feel a strong sense of urgency. We convince ourselves that we have time and that we can always do it later. But time is a finite resource, and the longer we wait, the more difficult it becomes to start. One way to create a sense of urgency is by setting deadlines for ourselves. These deadlines don't have to be arbitrary, they can be aligned with the goals we are working toward. For example, instead of thinking, "I'll finish this project whenever," we can say, "I'll complete the first draft by Friday." Having a specific timeline gives us something concrete to work toward, making it easier to stay focused and on track. It's also important to understand that procrastination often thrives in environments that are filled with distractions. In today's world, we are constantly bombarded with notifications, emails, and social media, all of which demand our attention and pull us away from our tasks. To combat this, it's crucial to create an environment that is conducive to focus and productivity. This might mean turning off notifications, setting aside specific times to check emails or social media, or organizing our workspace in a way that minimizes distractions. By creating a space where we can focus solely on the task at hand, we reduce the temptation to procrastinate and increase our ability to make progress. Another technique to combat procrastination is using the 2-minute rule. The idea behind this rule is simple. If a task will take 2 minutes or less to complete, do it immediately. This rule works because it prevents us from overthinking small tasks and encourages us to take immediate action. Often, the smallest tasks feel like the biggest barriers to progress, and by quickly knocking them off the list, we create a sense of accomplishment and momentum. When we start with small wins, we can build up to larger tasks and tackle them with more confidence. Sometimes, procrastination is a sign that we're not fully connected to our goals or that we're not passionate about the task at hand. If we find ourselves consistently procrastinating on something, it might be a signal that we need to reassess our priorities or find ways to reconnect with the purpose behind what we're doing. When we feel a strong sense of purpose and motivation, procrastination loses its power. By remembering why we started and keeping our larger goals in mind, we can push past the resistance that procrastination creates and move forward with determination. Overcoming procrastination requires self-awareness and a willingness to change our habits. It's important to recognize that procrastination is not something that will disappear overnight. It's a behavior that takes time to overcome, and we must be patient with ourselves as we work through it. Progress comes in small steps, and with each step we take, we build stronger habits that lead to greater success. The key is not to wait for the perfect moment or for motivation to strike. Instead, we must act now in the moment and trust that the progress we make today will bring us closer to our goals tomorrow. By tackling procrastination head-on, we free ourselves from the constraints it places on our potential and open up a world of opportunity for growth and achievement. Comfort can be one of the greatest barriers to success. It's the place where we feel safe, where we know the rules, and where everything seems predictable. In our comfortable zones, we can relax, avoid risks, and feel secure in our routines. But while comfort might feel good in the short term, it prevents us from growing, learning, and reaching our full potential. Success doesn't lie in the comfort zone. It's found in the spaces where we challenge ourselves, where we face uncertainty, and where we take risks. When we are comfortable, we tend to settle. We stop striving for more because we're content with where we are. But the reality is that growth never happens in a comfortable place. It's when we step out of our comfort zone that we unlock the potential for new experiences, opportunities, and achievements. Comfort gives us a sense of ease, but it's not where progress is made. If we want to achieve success, we must learn to embrace discomfort and uncertainty. One of the reasons we stay in our comfort zones is because stepping outside of them requires us to face the unknown. The unknown can be intimidating. It's filled with uncertainties and challenges that can shake our sense of security. It's easy to stay in a place where we know exactly what to expect, even if that place doesn't offer much in terms of growth. But if we want to grow, we must learn to embrace the unknown. We must realize that it's only by facing uncertainty that we can discover new strengths, talents, and capabilities within ourselves. The more we step into the unknown, the less fear we feel when we encounter it. Over time, we start to see that the unknown isn't something to fear, it's something to explore. Another reason we stay comfortable is that we're afraid of failure. We fear that if we step out of our comfort zone, we might fail, and failure feels like a negative reflection of our worth. But failure is not the enemy, it's an essential part of the process. Every successful person has faced failure along the way. It's not the failure that matters, but how we respond to it. If we allow failure to discourage us and force us back into our comfort zones, we miss the opportunity to learn and grow. Instead, we must learn to view failure as a lesson. When we fail, we gain valuable insights that help us adjust our approach, build resilience, and become better equipped for future challenges. The comfort zone might feel safe, but it keeps us stuck in the same patterns. Only by stepping out of it and risking failure can we make progress. In addition to fear of failure, comfort can also prevent us from taking risks. Taking risks is essential for success. Without risk, there is no reward. But the thought of taking a risk often brings with it feelings of discomfort, uncertainty, and fear. It's easy to stay where we are, where everything feels familiar, and avoid stepping into the unknown. But every great achievement, every breakthrough, and every success story involves some level of risk. Whether it's starting a new business, taking on a new project, or pursuing a new opportunity, success requires us to step outside of our comfort zones and take risks. Without risks, we never discover our true potential. We also avoid leaving our comfort zone because of the effort required to change. Change is inherently uncomfortable. It demands energy, focus, and determination. We have to break old habits, push ourselves harder, and sometimes sacrifice the things that feel easy and familiar. It's much easier to stick to what we know, but real growth happens when we push ourselves beyond our limits. The process of change is challenging, but it's in the struggle that we learn and evolve. We need to recognize that the discomfort of change is temporary and that the rewards that come from stepping outside our comfort zones are far more valuable than the temporary comfort we feel by staying the same. The danger of staying in the comfort zone is that it can lead to stagnation. When we're comfortable, we stop striving for more. We stop learning, growing, and improving. This stagnation can leave us feeling unfulfilled, uninspired, and disconnected from our true potential. Success isn't about settling, it's about striving for continuous improvement and growth. The most successful people are not those who stay comfortable, but those who push through discomfort, take on challenges, and continually seek to become better versions of themselves. Stepping outside of our comfort zone requires a shift in mindset. Instead of seeing discomfort and uncertainty as threats, we need to see them as opportunities. Each time we step into the unknown, we grow stronger and more capable. We learn more about ourselves, our abilities, and what we're truly capable of achieving. It's through these experiences that we build confidence and resilience. The more we embrace discomfort, the more we expand our limits and redefine what we thought was possible. One of the most important things we can do to leave our comfort zones behind is to set goals that challenge us. When we set goals that are too easy, we don't push ourselves to grow. But when we set goals that stretch us, that challenge our limits, we force ourselves to step outside our comfort zones. These goals give us the motivation to take risks, to learn new skills, and to push through obstacles. Every goal that forces us to leave our comfort zone brings us one step closer to success. The discomfort we feel when stepping outside our comfort zones is a sign that we're growing. It's a sign that we're pushing ourselves to become more than we were yesterday. Success is not found in the place of comfort, it's found in the place of discomfort, where we are forced to grow, adapt, and challenge ourselves. It's when we step into the unknown that we begin to uncover the possibilities that lie just beyond our reach. Embracing discomfort is the key to unlocking the doors of opportunity and achieving the success we desire. Success lies just outside the comfort zone, and the only way to get there is to take that first step into the unknown. Self-doubt is one of the most crippling forces that can stand in the way of success. It's a silent enemy that whispers in our minds, telling us that we're not good enough, that we don't have what it takes, and that we should give up before we even try. The voice of self-doubt is persistent, often louder than our inner confidence, and it can paralyze us from taking the very actions that lead to growth and achievement. When we listen to self-doubt, we convince ourselves that we are incapable of achieving our dreams, and in doing so, we limit our potential. One of the reasons self-doubt is so powerful is that it often stems from a deep fear of failure. We fear that if we try and fail, it will be a reflection of our inadequacy. We fear judgment from others, or worse, from ourselves. This fear leads us to question our abilities, even when we have proven time and again that we are capable of success. Instead of pushing forward with confidence, we hesitate, second-guess ourselves, and hold back from taking risks. This hesitation can lead to missed opportunities, and over time, it can create a cycle of inaction that feeds the self-doubt. The impact of self-doubt is not just emotional or mental, it can also be physical. When we doubt ourselves, we tend to hold back, not fully engaging in the tasks or goals at hand. This can manifest in procrastination, a lack of motivation, or a feeling of being stuck. Our bodies and minds are connected, and when we feel unsure of ourselves, it can result in a lack of energy, focus, and productivity. The more we allow self-doubt to dictate our actions, the more we reinforce the belief that we are not capable of success, which further erodes our confidence and limits our potential. Overcoming self-doubt begins with recognizing that it is a natural part of the human experience. Everyone, regardless of their level of success, experiences self-doubt at some point. Even the most accomplished people face moments of uncertainty, fear, and insecurity. The key is not to eliminate self-doubt entirely, but to learn how to manage it. Rather than allowing it to paralyze us, we can acknowledge it, but choose not to let it dictate our actions. It's important to understand that self-doubt is not an indication of our true abilities, but rather a product of our thoughts and fears. By separating ourselves from those thoughts, we can begin to take control of our actions and move forward despite the doubt. One of the most effective ways to overcome self-doubt is to focus on past successes. When we look back on our achievements, we can remind ourselves of the times we have overcome challenges and proved ourselves capable. This process of self-reflection helps us reframe the negative thoughts that fuel our doubt. It's easy to forget our strengths when we're consumed by self-doubt, but by remembering the obstacles we've already overcome, we can rebuild our confidence and recognize that we have the ability to succeed again. We don't have to prove our worth to anyone, and our past successes are evidence of what we're capable of. Another important step in overcoming self-doubt is changing the way we talk to ourselves. The language we use in our inner dialogue has a profound impact on our beliefs and actions. If we constantly tell ourselves that we're not good enough or that we can't do something, we start to believe it. But by shifting our mindset and replacing negative thoughts with positive affirmations, we can challenge the voice of self-doubt. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," we can say, "I am capable and I will give my best effort." By consciously choosing empowering language, we begin to reprogram our thoughts and build a stronger sense of self-belief. It's also essential to remember that self-doubt is often fueled by comparison. We live in a world where we are constantly exposed to the success stories of others, and it's easy to fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to people who seem to have it all together. But comparison is one of the most detrimental things we can do for our self-esteem. Everyone's journey is unique, and comparing our progress to someone else's only serves to highlight our insecurities. Instead of focusing on what others are doing, we should focus on our own path and progress. Recognizing that everyone has their own struggles and challenges helps to put things in perspective and allows us to embrace our individual growth without the weight of comparison. Another powerful tool for overcoming self-doubt is to surround ourselves with supportive people. The people we spend time with have a significant impact on our mindset and confidence. If we are surrounded by individuals who uplift and encourage us, we are more likely to believe in our own abilities. On the other hand, negative or unsupportive people can amplify our self-doubt and make us question our worth. Seeking out positive influences, whether through mentors, friends, or supportive communities, helps us build a network of encouragement that strengthens our belief in ourselves. Taking action, even when we don't feel fully confident, is one of the most effective ways to combat self-doubt. Often, we wait for the perfect moment or for our confidence to fully catch up before we take action. However, the key to overcoming self-doubt is to act in spite of it. When we take small steps toward our goals, we begin to build momentum. Each action we take reinforces the idea that we are capable, and the more we push through self-doubt, the more confident we become. It's important to remember that confidence comes through action, not just thought. The more we challenge the negative thoughts that hold us back, the more we prove to ourselves that we are capable of success. Lastly, self-compassion plays a vital role in overcoming self-doubt. We are often our harshest critics, and when we experience self-doubt, we tend to beat ourselves up. However, treating ourselves with kindness and understanding is essential for building resilience. Instead of focusing on what we perceive as failures, we can practice self-compassion by acknowledging that everyone experiences doubt and imperfection. By being kind to ourselves and accepting that mistakes are part of the journey, we can reduce the power that self-doubt has over us.